Hello, everyone. Dr. Vicky here, speaking to you from the Seeds of Transformation Healing Center. We're going to be looking at the last week or the last week and a half or 2 weeks of May. I'm going to try to wrap May up today from an astrological perspective. There are a couple of major things happening or continuing to happen. This week ahead is very much a week of shifting, and the energy is really starting to change. Now, of course, we've had a very active month so far. We've had a very active year astrologically, and 2024 always did promise to be quite a transformational year and a very active astrologically year. Not as astrologically active, say, as 2020 was, but still, this is these time when these slower planets move from one sign to another, and right now I'm speaking of Pluto because that's really the only one of the outer planets that is going from sign to sign into out of Capricorn into Aquarius, back into Capricorn, and then back into Aquarius. This year, this is the last bit of Capricorn and Pluto and Capricorn energy. Of course, right now we're still in Pluto in Aquarius, but Pluto is moving retrograde at this time. So it's starting to back into Capricorn. Won't actually get there until September. So we have a whole summer really of Pluto, late spring, summer here in the Northern Hemisphere with Pluto and Aquarius. And there's a couple of big things happening these next 2 weeks. So let's hop right into it. Before I do that, I want to welcome all my new subscribers. Welcome to this wonderful community of stargazers, as it were. And of course, to my tried and true who have been with me for years, thank you for spending time with me today and looking at the stars as they appear in the sky for these weeks in May. So let's just jump right in. Jump right in. Oh, I'm jumping. And boy, the joint is jumping. So we're going to be looking at the astrology of May 20th to May 31st. So that is what, the last 11 days of Gemini, excuse me. That was a slip, of May. And of course, if I was going to call this coming week, the 20th to the 27th, anything, I would call it Gemini Palooza. Gemini Palooza. We have the sun ingressing into Gemini. We have Venus ingressing into Gemini. And we have Jupiter ingressing into Gemini. And so there's a whole bunch of Gemini this week, a lot of shifting. Now, of course, the sun and Venus every year moves into Gemini. That is not unusual. Let's see, what's Mercury doing? I think Mercury is still in Taurus this week. But what is less, I don't want to say less normal, but more rare, I should say, is the fact that Jupiter is moving into Gemini. Jupiter has a 12-year cycle. It spends about a year in each sign. In fact, the Chinese zodiac is based on Jupiter. And so we haven't seen Jupiter in Gemini since 12 years ago, which would have been 2012, right? So, and before that, 2001, I believe. So, and of course, Gemini is a mutable air sign. And so the expansion principle of Jupiter in the sign of information and communication, we're going to be having a lot of those things. Now, of course, yeah, let's just get into it. So let's start with Monday the 20th. This is a shout out to my mother, Illuminata. It is her birthday. Happy birthday, Mom. Although I don't think she listens to my astrology. We'll all send love and light to my mother, Illuminata. So on the 20th of May, we have the sun's ingress into Gemini. And then on the 22nd, on a Wednesday, we have the sun making a waxing trine to Pluto. We remember that Pluto is in the early degrees of Aquarius. So as each one of these planets move into Gemini, they are going to be making a trine to Pluto. So trines are creative and self-expressive. Pluto is always about transformation. It's also about power. And so each one of these planets moving into the sign of Gemini in their way becomes empowered through Pluto. And trines are considered positive aspects. But really a trine is a flow of energy that does not have anything in the way. It just comes flying in, right? And when we're dealing with Pluto, just like anything, you can have a river that is free flowing, but if it happens to have, if it's like the spring melt or there's some sort of rain incident, that river will flow big and crest, and there's nothing stopping it. So it's not I don't like to say bad news or good news. I just like to say, know that there is nothing in the way of this energy of Pluto sort of inundating whatever planet moves into Gemini at this time. So the trine between the Sun and Pluto gives incredible inner strength, willpower. It can make us all very ambitious, driven, focused, and quite a bit and somewhat charismatic. Now, we are dealing with air here because Pluto is in Aquarius, and these planets moving into Gemini are in Gemini, all air signs. And so there's a lot of like mental energy with this. So we can expect things to get real big up here in our head. It's going to be especially important with all this Gemini energy to take the time that you need to be quiet, you might actually have to shut some things off because there's so much information and so much coming through at this time that it could uh, quite easily become overwhelming. On Thursday, the 23rd, Venus makes a conjunction to Jupiter. Now, Venus is in Taurus, Jupiter is in Taurus at the very end of Taurus, actually, and this conjunction occurs at 30 degrees of Taurus. Now, Venus, Jupiter, synodic cycles, that is the cycle from the conjunction to the next conjunction, they're about a year long. And it is an expansion. Jupiter is an expansive principle, and Venus is the planet of love and relationship and values and money. And so there is an increase in that. Now, the interesting thing is Jupiter is soon to move um, out of Taurus, where it's been for a year. I've really enjoyed Jupiter in Taurus. Um, in this year. It's been one of my favorite Jupiters, actually. Um, and so we're leaving Taurus behind, but because these synodic cycles, in the case of Venus and Jupiter, are occurring at the very end of um, of of the sign of Taurus, it kind of brings that Taurus energy forward, even though Jupiter is no longer in Taurus. So it's actually we still have the hopefully stabilizing influence of Taurus. Now, Jupiter and Taurus can also be very, very stubborn. And now, as it moves into the mutable sign of Gemini, it's like things that were hard to move suddenly become very easy to move. And so we have to take that into consideration as we sort of fly through. You know, as I look at, I'm preparing for next month, I'm preparing for June, I'm looking at the astrology of June. And June, of course, is the 6th month. It's the halfway point of the year. And June is also quite powerful and quite active as well. But once we get through June, I think the rest of the year is going to go so fast, we're not even going to know what hit us. And we've already gone through a year pretty quickly. So just things to consider. Venus conjunction of Jupiter occurs at 30 degrees of Taurus. Sabian symbol is a peacock parading on a terrace of an old castle. Embellishment, embellishing our life expression. We'll get more deeply into these symbols. We also have on May 23rd, really the 23rd is sort of the day where a lot of things are happening. First thing that happens is Venus makes a conjunction to Jupiter. And then, because the conjunction happens at 30 degrees, not long after that, because Venus moves quickly through the zodiac, Venus ingresses into Gemini, Actually, before it does that, I have this back a little backwards. Venus actually makes a sextile to Neptune. Now, Jupiter is at the last degree of Taurus. Neptune is at the last degree of Pisces. Now, Neptune is going to stay in Pisces this year. It doesn't move out of Pisces in 2024. So it's actually in that last degree for quite a while. It's going to turn around and go backwards. It's going to go retrograde, not this month, but it does go retrograde. I think in June, perhaps. So we have Venus conjunct Jupiter, then Venus makes a sextile to Neptune, then Venus moves into Gemini. We also have on the 23rd the full moon. The full moon is in Sagittarius, of course, with the sun in Gemini, as always. And then we have Jupiter making a waxing sextile to Neptune. Okay, it's following the same path as Venus did, but because Jupiter moves slower, Venus gets there first. So just to review, on the 23rd, we have the conjunction of Jupiter and Venus at 30 degrees. We have Venus making a waxing sextile to Neptune, while Venus is still at 30 degrees of Taurus. We have Venus ingress into Pisces. We have the full moon happening in the sign of Sagittarius. And then we have the last thing that happens on that day is Jupiter makes a sextile to Neptune. Now, the Jupiter-Neptune sextile is a rare occasion, okay? Jupiter and Neptune just were conjoined while Jupiter was in Pisces. That was in 2022. And this is a synodic cycle. I believe it's about a 14-year synodic cycle. And Jupiter and Neptune all deal with expansion, and it's expansion of spirituality. It's a very much an expansive principle. And we come to the sextile, the waxing sextile. Waxing sextiles are about opening the lines of communication and gathering information. And there is a whole lot of information that we're getting at this time. On Saturday, the 25th, Venus, freshly in Gemini, makes that waxing trine to Pluto, just like the sun did. Okay, the sun goes in first, makes the trine, moves on, then Venus moves into Gemini, makes the trine, and move on. All of these trines are waxing in nature. They are the pinnacle of ego, so we can expect quite a bit of egocentricity with this aspect. And of course, Venus is relationship, Pluto is power. And so there can be some power dynamics within relationships, but trines are flowing. So it's not necessarily a negative. It's not like a power struggle necessarily, but it's an empowering experience, and we can utilize that energy for our benefit. And then Jupiter ingresses into Gemini. If we look at the tree of life here, we can see where we have, this is the Sephiroth of Jupiter. We have Jupiter moving from Taurus to Gemini. This is the Sephiroth of Venus. We have Venus moving from Taurus to Gemini. So we see we have two major shifts into Gemini. And of course, the sun shifting into Gemini right at the beginning of the week. So this is also sort of a shifting energy. And so we have a lot of this movement from that fixed earth, I'm not changing my mind for anything, into Gemini, which is all about communication. And so we might actually see in the world people willing to talk about, make agreements, make pacts, perhaps some peace talks, perhaps some discussions, some maybe peace discussions, but without all this Taurus energy, we're less likely to sort of dig in our heels and more likely to communicate about the things that need to be communicated about. I just want to point out that this year is an 8 vibration, and it's right here on the Tree of Life. We have the vibration of the 5, which is May. This is here on the Tree of Life. And then we also have the combination of energies, the 13-4 vibration, which is the monthly vibration of 5 added to the year vibration of 8. And so this month for us, 13-4, the whole month vibrates to the death card, and the death card is about change. And we can see that the changes are happening. We're changing from that Taurian energy, Venus rules, to now we're moving into that Gemini energy, which is Mercury ruled. Okay, so it's a little less fraught in a way, but yet perhaps a little bit more overwhelming in a way as well. So let's go into each one of these if we could. All right, so the sun's ingress into Gemini, these are charts for the US. Thank you very much if you're not from the US for allowing me to use the US as an example. We have the sun moving into Gemini, and I always look to see what the ruler of the sign that a planet is moving into is doing as well, and we will look at that. So let's look at the first degree of Gemini. First, we have a glass bottom boat reveals undersea wonders. This is the first degree of Gemini. We will see this symbol over and over again, right? Discovering new dimensions. The unconscious mind holds as many secrets as the ocean depths, which can be revealed in one who inquires, uncovering a new dimension of life. If you remember last week, we had the symbols in Taurus about a new continent rising from the sea. That has been a very significant symbol over the last couple of years. That 19th degree of Taurus was very prominent in 2022 and 2023, and now in 2024. So we have this sense of potentiality of creating something new. And of course, we're in a 13-4 vibration this month, which is about letting go of that which no longer serves and building something new from that, right? Change. Now, we want to look to see where Mercury is. In the case when the sun moves into Gemini, Mercury is also in Gemini, and Mercury likes being in Gemini. It is the ruling planet of excuse me, it's not in Gemini, it's in Taurus. Sorry about that. So it's at 7 degrees of Taurus. Now, this is a very significant degree of Taurus as well. We do have a Chiron. Oh, what is it? Anyway, never mind. I'm sorry, I was trying to remember something that wasn't coming into my head, so we'll just leave it where it's not in my head. The 7 degrees of Taurus, the woman of Samaria at the ancestral well, breakthrough to a new spiritual level. It's interesting that these symbols some of these symbols anyway, allude to the time of Jesus. And if you read Dane Rudger's book on the Sabian symbol, this is one of my favorite Sabian symbols, the way he describes it. The push of the past diverted into a new direction. The push of the past diverted into a new direction by an unusually powerful spiritual experience, implanting hope. Implanting hope. It's exactly what we need at this time. Hope for a better day. Okay. This the sun is here, and it is sextile Neptune. We can see that. And also, let's see. I think that's the only aspect it's making. Oh, and the trine to Pluto. So we can see Pluto here at 201 and the sun moving into Gemini. We see that there will soon be that trine, and that trine happens on the 22nd. The sun waxing trine to Pluto, creatively self-expressive. The creative self-expression of power, Pluto. Part of the synodic cycle that began on January 20th, 2024, when Pluto and the sun conjoined at 30 degrees of Capricorn. If you remember, the sun was the only inner planet or personal planet that conjoined Pluto while it was still in Capricorn. And then a little bit after, the sun moved into Aquarius and then Pluto moved into Aquarius, all on the same day on the 20th. January 20th was one of those watershed days that we had. So where there was a big shift in energy. And this is the trine of that shift in energy. And so this is a flow of energy and a flow of power. The highest level of social influence. Society is structured hierarchically, and there are small groups of people who secretly direct the course of history. This is 30 degrees of Capricorn, by the way. This was the initial conjunction, just to remind you, accepting the need for high-level management of collective affairs. Now, this degree of Capricorn is the degree that Pluto is going to move back into Capricorn on the 1st of September and exit on the 20th of November, on Joe Biden's birthday. This is the degree it is in as it moves forward, and then it turns retrograde and moves back, and then moves back into Aquarius. But it all happens at that last degree. So this last degree, highest level of social influence, is in influence all year. Now we have Pluto at 2 degrees of Aquarius, an unexpected thunderstorm. Life is ephemeral. As I said, these trines can be disruptive and destructive because there's nothing getting in the way. Doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be, but I would imagine we're going to have some big weather with this. Big weather. Even though we want to cement our lives into secure structure, nature always wins in the end. Submission to unforeseen and uncontrollable forces in a trine to the sun at 2 degrees of Gemini. Santa Claus filling stockings, spiritual blessings, the childlike openness to the possibility of wonders bring unexpected gifts as though from magical sources. Belief in the universality of abundance. The aspect of the sun and Pluto, Sun trine Pluto transits bring intense and profound experiences. Whatever you are interested in now, you will be driven to research and investigate the inner workings to gain complete understanding of the topic. That's very much a Pluto thing, right? You will have greater power and influence over your life, allowing for positive transformation. You can also exert this great power and influence over the events in your life and those around you. And so really the Pluto as an energy is the collective soul, really. And the collective soul wants us to be Aquarian, and the sun is sort of Pluto is using the sun as a sort of a conduit for the changes that need to happen. Of course, the sun is in Gemini, and so Gemini is a mutable air sign, and so there's new ideas coming in, new creativity, all kinds of new options at this time. All right, get to the next. Oops, sorry. Trying to get to the next. I don't know why this. Sometimes it works like just now, like it works like where I wasn't trying to have it work, and then it works. Okay. Now we're looking at Venus conjunct Jupiter at 30 degrees of Taurus, peacocks parading on a terrace of an old castle. And here you can see, here's the conjunction right at the very end of Taurus. This conjunction is conjunct the sun on one side and Uranus on the other. So we still have this Uranian energy sort of imbued in all of this Taurus. So as stable as Taurus wants to be, because Uranus is in Taurus, it actually makes it more, not necessarily unstable, but open to new things in a way that Taurus generally is not. But of course, Uranus has been in Taurus since 2018, so we've had a lot of experience with this Taurus having to open up to new ideas when as it moves through, as Uranus moves through its sign. Okay, what our personal displays of excellence bear testimony to all that went before us, embellishing our life experience. You know, a Taurus is an energy that's about survival, but once we get our essential needs met, that's when we can move Taurus into the more creative and culturally significant energy of Taurus, where we are embellishing things. Where Taurus is a Venus ruled sign, so there's always beauty involved, and taste and aesthetics is always part of the Taurus picture, or the Venuvian picture. Individuality seeks both maturity of understanding and full substantiation of worth, wisdom and wealth. Gifts inherited and improved upon are shown to be part of the flowering of cultural aspirations, and its pride and joy. It's pride and joy. There is a certain amount of, peacocky things going on here. And we may see that. We may see exhibits of wealth or exhibits of beauty or at this time. And this starts that year-long synodic cycle between Jupiter and Venus, the expansion of our values. On Thursday, the 23rd, we have Venus ingress into Gemini. A glass bottom boat reveals undersea wonders, right? Discovering new dimensions. Now, Mercury is the ruler of this, but Mercury has moved on, so it's not at the same degree as it was when the sun moved into Gemini. So we have Mercury at 12 degrees of Taurus. A Negro girl fights for her independence in the city, in the inextinguishable freedom of the mind. And this take on the Sabian symbols I get from website jamesburgess.com. It is Sabian Mysteries, an excellent website for real exploration into the Sabian symbols, if you're so interested in that. And who wouldn't be, as far as I'm concerned. Habits of behavior and thought are heavy burdens that must be cast off if we want to journey into new realms, casting off the slave mentality. And so this is interesting because, we look at what's going on in the world and how there are certain groups of people really suffering because of, really man's inhumanity to man, or maybe I should say man's inhumanity to women and children. And so, there's a victim consciousness that, if you get victimized enough, you start to believe that that's what you deserve. And so it really requires us to break free from that. And it's interesting that the 10 of Wands is the symbol for this particular vibration on this day, because the 10 of Wands is called the burden bearer. And so we must release the burdens. We have to release those thought forms that talk us into that we are less than and that we deserve, or that maybe that's not the case, but we're less than, and what can we expect, kind of thing. So there is that. We also have, of course, Venus sextiling Neptune. I guess I should have done this before I did Venus moving in, because obviously Venus hasn't moved in yet, but it is making that sextile to Neptune, opening the lines of communication with who? With spirit, this is especially important because Neptune is actually the higher octave of Venus. Venus, the planet of love, and Neptune, the higher octave of Venus, which is in the higher octave of love, which is compassion, right? Compassion, unconditional love. And again, we have the peacock parading on the terrace. That's Venus at 30 degrees of Taurus. and Neptune at 30 degrees of Pisces, the great stone face, becoming our own ideal. There is no right answer to or best version of anything. We make it up according to how we feel or think we should. We become whatever we idealize. And so this is important because what do you admire? What do you admire? And how are you going to, and how do you become that, right? We need to be discerning about where we're putting our energy and who are, sorry, our heroes or the people that we aspire to be like, right? Really, we're being asked to aspire to be ourselves. However, we can use other people as uh, things to aspire towards, right? But I would suggest that you pick well on that. All right. The synod began, this synod, the Venus Neptune synod began on April 3rd at 28 degrees of Pisces, a fertile garden under a full moon. Enough is a feast. So this is interesting because the initial conjunction in which we're at the sextile point of this is the first tomelic aspect that we've come to with the sextile, the opening of the lines of communication of the seeds planted at this conjunction on the 3rd. Success in mastering the earth plane is measured in our ability to win abundance without becoming a slave to greed, fulfilling your desires. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. Okay. All right, continue on here. Continue. I'm trying to go as fast as I can. The full moon, the full moon. So for those of you who want more specifics on the full moon, I will direct you to Ona and I do a moon shine episode on Ona's channel, Ona's Tarot, and that will come out this week, the week of the full moon. So you can keep your eyes peeled for that, and we get into this a little bit more. If you look at just the chart in the middle here, we notice that we have a Merkaba in here, don't we? We have a 6-pointed star, the moon and the Cancer ascendant, and Neptune making a trine to that Cancer ascendant. And we also have the Earth here. We have Black Moon Lilith at 25 of Virgo. We have Pluto, which is trine this, and also the Earth itself, which is in Capricorn when the Sun is in Cancer. Actually, no, this is not the Earth. This is not the Earth. I'm sorry. That's the uh part of fortune. Sorry, that's the part of fortune. So we have Black Moon Lilith, Pluto, and then we have Jupiter, Venus, the Sun, all making a trine. So we have a Merkaba here, which is always a magical time for this full moon. The moon in 3 degrees of Sag, the Sun 3 degrees of Gemini. The Sun at 3 degrees of Gemini, the garden of the Tuileries. I know I'm saying that wrong. Sorry for my French folk out there. In Paris, crystallization, bringing to bear the rational mind to explain the mysteries, solidifies experience into a foundation of knowledge, understanding hierarchy and privilege. Understanding hierarchy and privilege. And this is actually a picture of that garden in France, in Paris, opposing the moon at 3 degrees of Sagittarius, 2 men playing chess. And we have that here, strategic training. Life must be strategically managed if we want to know happiness and success, carefully choosing the optimal path. And so we have this sort of structured, abundant, beautiful, and yet sort of, only the higher echelon would have a place like this, in opposing this 2 men playing chess. How do we get our needs met? How do we aspire in such a way where we can create these things, and in my estimation, without it causing other people undue um, discomfort, honestly. That's how I feel though. So that could just be me. All right. All right, so let's continue. So, like I said, if you want to go to Ona's channel, we'll be doing a moonshine episode on her channel. We'll really get deep into this full moon. And then we have Jupiter, after a year of spending time in Taurus, moving into Gemini. And of course, we have the glass bottom boat, right? And as Jupiter moves into Taurus, and this is actually happening on the 25th, so it's a different day. Everything seemed to happen on the 23rd, right? But now we're in the 25th. And we look at the Gemini symbol again, right? Uncovering new dimensions of life. We look to Mercury again. Now, Mercury has moved on even further into Taurus at 15 degrees of Taurus. Two Dutch children talking to each other, exchanging their knowledge. Validation is the key word here. Receiving messages are not free from bias of subjective interpretation. So we should get confirmation if we can. Confirmation and validation. Confirmation and validation. So this is honestly Jupiter moving into Gemini with that Mercury ruling says to us we must validate the information that we're getting. Okay, so we have to check our sources with this. And here we have, there is a Jupiter moving into, and in the case, this is the US chart moving, it's happening in the seventh house, which is open enemies, but also allies. And so perhaps we need to pay close attention to both our friends and our enemies at this time. And then, of course, we have Venus trining Pluto. Venus is at 2 degrees of Gemini, Santa Claus filling those stockings again with Pluto, the unexpected thunderstorm. So this is the same energy as the sun and Pluto, the same symbols as the sun and Pluto. However, we're dealing with Venus, and Venus is about love, and it's about relationship, and it's about money, and it's about resources. And so there's a flow. Okay, there's a flow. And of course, Pluto is in Aquarius. So Aquarius is a collective energy of Pluto, right? The raising of all boats, and then perhaps a flow of resources and information so that can manifest itself. On the 23rd, oh, look, I skipped around. On the 23rd, sorry about this. This is a little skip. I thought I fixed this, but I didn't. Jupiter sextile Neptune. Yeah, let's talk about that because this is of all the aspects happening this week. Jupiter sextile Neptune is probably the one that is the most rare in its way because it's part of a larger synodic cycle, which lasts about 14 years. And so Jupiter sextile Neptune, the sextile between Jupiter and Neptune, offers rich opportunity for deep self-understanding and compassion, while themes of gullibility and heightened sensitivity echo strongly from the conjunction. The sextile allows these themes to develop more clearly. Jupiter conjunct Neptune was about the expansion of consciousness. The synod, Jupiter-Neptune synod, began on April 12, 2022, which incidentally vibrated to a 22-4, which is the Fool card. It is the Awakener. It's a Uranian energy. And so even the synod of the beginning of this expansion of consciousness started with a vibration of Master Spiritual Builder. And so this is about bringing onto the planet the light, and what are we going to build from that light? This particular conjunction occurred at 24 degrees of Pisces. Self-identification. We must choose how to interrelate with others, and so the need arises for the acceptable yet authentic identity, an acceptable yet authentic identity. So this is about being who we are, but also knowing that we are relating to other people and we need to take other people into consideration. And so as much as you want to fly your freak flag, you're going to have to make it so that you can actually talk to other people. You can't be so freaky that that um, you can't affect and help others come to some sort of understanding and expansion of their consciousness. Um, Baby steps, right? You have to start where they're comfortable, and then things can expand out. Now Jupiter is at 30 degrees of Taurus. That is the little peacock on the lawn, and sextiling Neptune and Pisces, becoming our own ideal. And so this really, again, deals with our ability to be who we authentically are and relating to others from that place. We can no longer have all these facades and things that we think people want us to be. We have to be comfortable with ourselves. Now, of course, Chiron is in Aries, and we've had all this Aries energy, the North Node's in Aries. And so it's really all about being our authentic selves, being our authentic selves, for sure. Okay. All right, now let's look at the last few days of May. Monday, the 27th, we have Mercury making a waxing sextile to Saturn. Mercury is still in Taurus, Saturn is in Pisces. This is part of the synodic cycle between Mercury and Saturn. Saturn is the structure of our consciousness, Mercury is the information needed. We will look at this more specifically. On Wednesday, the 29th, we have Venus make a semi-square to Mars. I don't usually talk about semi-squares, but this is an evolutionary gateway in the relationship between Venus and Mars, which are the two planets that deal with relationships. So this is important. On that same day, Venus makes a semi-square to Chiron, and then Mars makes a conjunction to Chiron. So we have Venus and Mars make a semi-square. Then we have Venus make that same semi-square to Chiron, and then shortly thereafter, Chiron and and Mars make that conjunction in Aries. Uh, all right, on Friday the 31st, we have Mercury make a conjunction to Uranus. This is an important synodic cycle because Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. This is the start of an annual Mercury-Uranus synod, the higher mind seating the lower mind, the higher mind being Uranus, the lower mind being Mercury. It occurs at 25 degrees of Taurus, a vast public park, which speaks to us about working collectively. So there's a lot of energy about interacting and conversing and coming from your unique and authentic self and expressing yourself and working towards a better tomorrow. This really is our opportunity to create a different kind of future than the future we have than what we're seeing happening right now, right? What's happening right now? How do we want to change that? What do we want to do about that? Okay. Mercury sextile Saturn, opening the lines of communication and information gathering, mentally stimulating and increasing curiosity. This synod began at the Mercury Saturn conjunction on the 28th of February at 10 degrees of Pisces. An aviator pursues his journey flying through ground obscuring clouds, the highest level of achievement. This is about utilizing your intuition, but to the best of your ability. This is about being your best self, because this is what we need. We need to come to the party with our best selves forward, because we are the people we've been waiting for. We are the people we've been waiting for. Only a few manage to go beyond the levels of normal excellence to master their chosen craft and skill set, attaining the highest level of responsibility that we can manage. What is expected of us? Everything. What are we expected to be? Our best. Our best. I know what you're thinking. Be best. But perhaps we do need to be best. Perhaps Melania had the right idea. But who knows? Because she never spoke. It's hard to know what she was thinking. Anyway, at least, well, maybe she spoke. I just never listened, I guess. Now Mercury is at 19 degrees. We're in the sextile. This is opening lines of communication, right? Newly formed continent pure receptivity. There's that 19 degrees of Taurus again, guys. Pure receptivity that sponsors a spiritual breakthrough. So we're talking about spiritual breakthroughs. We're talking about new ways of doing things, guys. And Saturn at 19 degrees of Pisces, a master instructing his students. Transmission. This is transmission of knowledge. Knowledge is kept alive by teachers who pass their information and understanding and materials to their students, participating in the transmission of love and knowledge. And so this is about talking to each other, helping each other. What are you good at? This is what I'm good at. Let's work together and let's do something that's going to benefit everybody. Remember, Pluto is in Aquarius, asking us or reminding us that we must raise all boats. Now let's talk about this Venus Mars thing that's happening. And so Venus and Mars have a special relationship. Mars is the planet of action, energy moving out, very sort of extroverted. And Venus is about energy moving in. Venus functions through magnetic attraction, and Mars functions through action. And it's the interaction of these two, the feminine and the masculine, that creates relationship and a lot of power, right? And for the most part, most of our lives revolve around our relationships, right? And so they're very, very important. This is how we learn about ourselves. We learn about ourselves through our relationships. So every 2 years, we start a synodic cycle between these two. The last time that we did, we had, it was on February 22nd of this year, 2024. It was a 32.5 vibration, which is the soul, which is the path of life and the shadow of the US. Incidentally, it's about freedom. It's the Six of Wands. But it's freedom based on responsibility, just to be clear about that. This particular conjunction occurred at 7 degrees of Aquarius. A child is being seen being born out of an egg. Can anyone say mork from orc, right? Freedom from old ways and standards. Freedom from old ways and standards. Dramatic changes occur when an entirely new mutation occurs that breaks the traditions of the past, breaking with tradition. And some of the traditions that we've held on to have been very difficult and not all that good, right? What are we letting go of? What's the new world we want to create? The continent is rising out of the sea. We are the people we've been waiting for. Now Venus is at 8 degrees of Gemini, beautifully gowned waxed figures, creative powers of admiration, creating the future out of idealized images, creating idealized intention, making a semi-square to Mars. Now, semi-squares are important because this is the part of these two planets are at an evolutionary gateway. The energy of the conjunction, which is energy moving out, is now starting to move back in. Like breathing, the energy goes out, the energy comes in. The energy goes out, the energy comes in. This synod is a 2-year synodic cycle. And this is the first evolutionary gateway. This is where we've had all this experience of the conjunction, this idea of dramatic changes and the need for change, need for us to change. And now we're sort of moving back to actually create a blueprint so that we can move forward on this. Mars at 23 degrees of Aries, a pregnant woman in a light summer dress, rich potential of every moment and situation. Assertiveness and desire together bring birth to creative new possibilities, creative assertiveness towards furtherment of potentials. When a clear assertive purpose applies to the field of potential, something else is being brought into being. And the vibration of this day aptly is the Two of Cups, right? The Two of Cups, love. And then Venus makes a waxing sextile to Chiron. Venus at 8 degrees of Gemini, an industrial strike, revolt against injustice. When the powerful and the rich take advantage The rebelliousness is close at hand. Assertive expression of will, making a semi-square to Chiron in Aries. A pregnant woman in a light summer dress, 23 degrees of Aries. The rich potential of every moment, of every situation. The initial conjunction on April 24th of 2024 was at 21 degrees of Aries, which of course is the Chiron for the United States. A pugilist enters the ring, overwhelming power. Two sides of aggression, measuring up to challenges, so to examine our strengths and our weaknesses. Okay. So revolt against injustice and the rich potentiality of every situation. Okay. We are creating a new world, guys. We are creating a new world. And then we have Mars conjunct Chiron at 23 degrees of Aries. This happens every 2 years. Chiron and Aries come together. And Chiron and Mars come together. And it's especially potent because Mars is the ruling planet of Aries. And so as Mars comes together with Chiron in Aries, it really is quite a powerful combination. The rich potential of every moment and every situation. Assertiveness and desire together give birth to creative new possibilities. Creative assertiveness towards furtherment of potentials. When clear assertive purpose applies to the field of potential, something else is being brought into being. We are in a highly chaotic and energetically potent time. It is at the edge of chaos and order that creativity happens, and we are at that place. We have had the chaos. Now it's up to us to focus our intentions to create from that chaos the new world. And we know what we don't like. We know what doesn't feel good. We know what we no longer want to see. Now it's about taking action and focusing your intention onto what you want to see and following it up with action. Focus followed by action. And lastly, Mercury conjunct Uranus. The start of the yearly synodic cycle between Mercury and Uranus at 25 degrees of Taurus, a large public park. This speaks to us of working collectively. It's interesting because the vibration for that day is 44-8, right? This card, the Four of Cups, which is often a divine discontent. Look around and seeing what's being offered to you. Don't waste your time on moaning about what is, but look around for the gifts that are around us. Belonging to a tribe or community involves us in working together toward shared goals that we all enjoy. Participation in community responsibilities. We are in this together, guys. We cannot expect somebody else to do the work for us. We have to do the work, and we have to decide what is most important to us. A community in harmony will act together to create communal works that allow individuals to enjoy greater levels of abundance and comfort. It is a strong motivation to seek ways to live in peace and put aside fear, competition, and aggressiveness, which is pretty much, what we've been dealing with for years and years, of course, but especially over the last 8 years or so. So we are ready for a new way, and we are starting that new way right now. All right, I think that's it. Let me just double check on that. Yep, okay, awesome. All right, so hopefully you found this helpful. I'm sorry it was a little confusing, but the themes are all there. The themes are, we are the people we've been waiting for. If we want to change things, we're going to have to do it through our focused intention and then backing it up with action. And we're not going to do it by ourselves. We need to do it in community. We got in this mess this way. We're going to get out of this mess this way. So have yourself a wonderful rest of May. Like and subscribe if you haven't. If you would like a reading with me, I do have openings, and also I must be starting a new class on transits in astrology. So you can, if you want to join me on that, that will be on my website. It's an intermediate class, will be listed as an intermediate class. If you're interested in that, I'll put a link below. Also, starting to gather students for my introduction to the Kabbalah that will be starting in June. And there are links below for that as well. If you would like a reading with me, like I said, I do have availability. They are combination astrology, numerology, and Kabbalah. You can have an hour and a half or an hour reading. Those are the two options. If it's your first time, the hour and a half is preferable, but whatever you can afford to do is what we will do. All right. Have yourself a great month, and I'll see you in June. Much love, everyone. Namaste.